Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our This Week in Sports special, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, on Mac Sports and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook pages. Please like, follow, and share our Facebook pages. Subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Our website is nessp.info for all the information on all the great Northeast Streaming Sports shows, the guests, bios, stores, and links to those stores. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Together, we bring you national sports with special focus on the Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How you doing?
Good morning, Mac. Busy day in sports last night. A lot happened.
A lot of things going on, Jack. And Keith, thank you for chiming in. We love having you aboard the show. Jack, you know, as we get closer and closer to the finals, it's interesting how they've developed right now. You had the Bucks advance into the East Conference final with a 115-111 overtime win over the Nets. Giannis, 40 points, 10 rebounds. Middleton chips in 23. Durant has 48 points, 9 rebounds. Harden hobbling around, still got 22. So injuries played a little role, in the outcome, I feel, anyway. The Bucks kind of dug down and won the game. Durant with a hell of a job trying to carry the Nets. It looked like maybe at the end he might have started running out of a little gas. But the Bucks do it. They're going to be waiting on the winner of the Hawks and the 76ers, which I think is still a question mark who's going to win that game. So the Bucks get it done, Jack, and they're waiting now.
Listen, the Bucks got it done, and full credit to the Bucks, but the Nets were playing with half of their big three. Even though two of the big three were in the lineup, James Harden was just a shell of himself because of the hamstring injury. Shot only 5 for 17 from the field, 2 for 12 from three-point range, was a step slow on defense. He just wasn't the same player. And the guys played excessive minutes. Kyrie, Irving, the game going in overtime, over 50 minutes. And the Nets only used officially 8 players in the game, really 7, because Claxton came in basically for a cup of coffee just to guard an inbound pass. He didn't even play a minute. So they really used 7 players, for the duration of a game into overtime, the biggest game of the year. So everyone talks about the great net bench, but the great net bench was nowhere to be seen. They didn't take one shot all game. Yeah. Not one shot all game. Durant is phenomenal. Giannis calls him the best player in the NBA. I'm not going to argue that. It's amazing the way he came back from this Achilles injury. Durant, to me, is one of the best of all time, but that's an argument for another day. But Milwaukee did get it done. They were gritty. They hung in there. They made the most of a lot of opportunities, and they advanced. And considering how disappointing their playoff history has been, good for them. Now they have a legitimate shot maybe going to the finals. Tonight, the Hawks meet the Sixers. Let's see who survives that game. The Sixers are favored, but the Hawks have more than a puncher's chance, per se. And Milwaukee has a legitimate path to an NBA title now.
And if you think about it, they're probably the healthiest team. I mean, the Hawks are pretty healthy too, but the healthiest. I don't know if you want to even call them a super team in the East, maybe a favorite. They're the healthiest favorite right now in the division, in the Eastern Conference. So even if Philly gets by with Embiid banged up the way he is, I mean, I don't know if I picked the 76ers to go, but I don't know now, Jack.
I don't know either, but the intriguing thing in the offseason in the NBA is not going to be who wins the NBA championship, which moves get made. It's always a big talk, all the teams that didn't win the title. Do they need to make moves to be in the mix to win the NBA title next year? Not. Should they stand pat? The next season, okay? So much was expected. They got James Harden. They were favorites to win the NBA title. They didn't. They're going to rationalize, and they're going to say it's because of injuries that they didn't do it. They're going to come back healthy next year with Harden, Irving, and Durant. Their bench, they're going to get it done. It's easier said, than actually happening, because injuries do happen. You don't know who's going to go down during the season. Kind of bothered me, Kyrie Irving's attitude this season. He was on the bench yesterday cheering for his team. Good for him. But this is one of the big three who said before the playoffs, it's not that important whether they win or lose. There are more important things in life. Of course, that's the case, but this is your job. People are paying money. There's a fan base. I mean, things are contingent on winning, okay? Success on your job is contingent on winning. And here's one of their star players, one of their big three, saying it's really not that important. You want to be a philosopher. That's great. And what he's saying really is correct. We all know there are bigger things in life than a basketball game. We don't need to be told that by an athlete. We all know that. But be focused, okay? That you have to absolutely get it done. And again, Kyrie Irving, because I assume he was legitimately injured, otherwise he would have played. But this is the second big Game 7 in a row where he wasn't there because he was hurt. This game, and when he was with the Celtics, Game 7 against the Cavaliers to see who would go to the finals, he wasn't there either, okay? Yeah. So if I'm the Nets, I think if I could pull a blockbuster deal, maybe a Kyrie Irving for Damian Lillard, for example, some type of deal, if there's a player of equal caliber who has some discontent, I make the deal, because Kevin Durant is a superstar. And as long as you have the Harden, Irving, Durant threesome there, it kind of brings Kevin Durant down a little. He just becomes one of the elite players in the NBA, but not the elite player. So I think it would benefit Durant with some, change of scenery, with Kyrie Irving.
That's well said, Jack, and I don't disagree with anything you said. The Clippers and the Suns are starting the series today at 3. Two very interesting developments. We know that Kawhi's not going to play, and they didn't need him to finish off the Jazz. And Chris Paul, because of safety procedures, the COVID procedures, will not be playing, and they don't know when he's going to be playing, Jack. Chris Paul has really elevated, the Phoenix Suns to, even better than they were. They got a great team. They're top 5 offense and defense. But losing Chris Paul, we don't know if they can win without him. We know that the Clippers can win without Kawhi. So it's going to be interesting today, Jack, to see who takes Game 1.
Don't underestimate Kawhi. Just because the Clippers beat the Jazz 2 straight without Kawhi, it catches up to you in the long run. Short term for Game 2, anyone can beat anyone else short term for Game 2. But you stretch it into a longer series, you feel a star player's absence a lot more. Just like with Chris Paul, maybe he misses a game because of the COVID protocols. It kind of looks that way right now. Maybe not. They tend to change their minds at the last minute when it comes to COVID. Sometimes the guy's allowed. We've seen athletes allowed to start a game and then get pulled out during the game. That's how crazy it's been. But Phoenix isn't going to beat the Clippers without Chris Paul long term. But fortunately for them, it might only be one game that he's going to have to sit out. And Leonard's day-to-day, he's going to miss the first game. But it's a little alarming. But the Clippers have shown great resiliency coming down from a 2-0 hole against Dallas and Utah. So it's an intriguing series, the Suns and the Clippers, two very pretty evenly matched teams. I'm going with Phoenix in that series to get to the finals to beat the Clippers. Whether Leonard comes back the second game or not, I'm going with the Phoenix Suns.
That was my pick in the beginning of the playoffs. I think they have a better overall team. team wise than anybody else, including what we saw happen with the Jazz. In the NHL, Jack, the Islanders win Game 4, big second quarter, big play on defense by them to keep a goal out. The series is now tied 2-2. Bailey, Barzal, and Martin with a goal apiece. Johnson in point for Tampa Bay. I think this series is going to go 7, Jack. I think they're very evenly matched. They're different, but yet they're the same. They're very talented teams defensively. Offensively, Tampa Bay may have a small edge over them, but I think it's going 7 games.
I'm going to tell you it's 2 games apiece, best 2 out of 3. The 2 Islander wins, they had to survive a furious onslaught from Tampa Bay at the end of the games. 2 games that the Islanders had all locked up, basically. When they got to 3, I was flip-flopping the channels, mostly watching the Net-Buck game, but also watching some of the Islander-Tampa Bay game. But especially when the Islanders had the 3-0 lead, I'm thinking, okay, now I can give all my attention to the Net-Buck game that was going on at the same time. But, of course, during a commercial, I switched back to the hockey game, and the 3-0 lead in the third period is now 3-2. Yeah. And you're kind of wondering, here we go again, like in Game 2 when they had a 2-0 lead and Tampa Bay scores on the power play, with 1 minute left in the game, and then stages a furious rally on goal in the closing seconds. But yesterday, the way the game ended, it's going to be remembered for a long time. The Islanders are up 3-2, just trying desperately to kill the clock at the end of the game. And with a few seconds left, Tampa Bay manages to get a shot on goal, a rebound. The Islander goalie, Varlamov, is completely out of position. He comes out of the goal. Tampa Bay follows up on the rebound. The shot's about to go in. Ryan Pollock, their defenseman, comes out of nowhere, kind of like Superman flying in, and blocks the shot. That was going into the goal and basically saves the Islanders from an overtime. I mean, tremendous instincts by the defenseman there. Tremendous instincts, getting to the puck and making the biggest non-goalie save in Islander history. How do you like that? Biggest save by a non-goalie in Islander history. And the Islanders survive, and they win 3-2. And now anything could happen. It's best 2 out of 3. We think Tampa Bay's the better team. But the Islanders haven't played a complete game yet from beginning to end. Do they have that complete game in them? At least 1 out of these 3 games left. We'll see.
Well, I mean, that defensive play, Jack, is something that at the end of the series you look back on. If the Islanders come on top and you say, that might have changed the whole series around. There's normally a big play in a series, and it's not necessarily a score that propels a team to win a series. And we might look back on it if the Islanders win and say, if it wasn't for that, who knows what could have happened. So, big play by the Islander defenseman there. In the Major League Baseball, Jack, we're going to kind of go over the top teams here. In the AL East, Red Sox are 6-4 over the last 10. They are now in first place, a half a game ahead of the Rays. The White Sox are in first, 3.5 games, and they've also gone 6-4 over the last 10, so they got a 3.5 game lead. In the West, the A's are 44-28, 1 game up on the Astros, who are 8-2 in their last 10 games. Houston's starting to come on a little bit. In the National League East, the Mets, they're up 4 on Philly right now at 36-28. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games now. The Cubs and Brewers tied at 39-32. And in the West, the Giants, 1.5 games up on the Dodgers at 45, and it looks like 23. I can't read my writing sometimes. But anyway, again, the Red Sox holding on, the Giants holding on. Now the Brewers making a little bit of a run, the Astros making a little bit of a run, Jack. This thing is wide open. And the couple surprise teams that I thought are still hanging in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's first place, second place. I think the positions in the standings is less important than where you are right now. Take the White Sox, for example. The Cleveland Indians are something like 3.5 games behind them. The Indians are not considered to be a strong team, but they're pesky. They're hanging in there. And it's like the White Sox kind of want to drop the Cleveland Indians. We're waiting for the Indians maybe to start being quite average the way we thought they'd be in the beginning of the year. And if that happens, the White Sox have such a big lead over all the other teams, they could kind of coast to the division title. Then you have the Astros, Athletics. They're interchanging the lead. And the Red Sox, Tampa Bay are flip-flopping first place, going back and forth very tight. And the Yankees are 5.5 games back, which as long as they're not falling further back, they're in a good spot because eventually they'll surge at certain points during the season and get closer. It just takes one good week where you win 5 out of 7. A team ahead of you loses 5 out of 7, and now you've gained 3 games. So 5.5 games becomes the only 2.5 games back, and then you could relax because you're close. But it's kind of like jockeying for position. It's kind of like a horse race, a marathon run where the lead pack is running and you're kind of waiting for someone to make a break. Some teams are going to be there at the end. Obviously, the Dodgers aren't going to fall apart. They're going to be there at the end. They're going to be in a prime playoff position. The Mets have benefited by a weak NL East, but one of the 4 teams behind them, might all of a sudden take off and surge. Maybe it's going to be the Phillies with a good everyday lineup. They're going to put it together. Maybe the Atlanta Braves. They've been a colossal disappointment in part because of injuries. Maybe they'll put it together. Miami Marlins, Washington Nationals. We don't know. But I don't get so hyped on Mac. Oh, my team's in first place now. The position is less important to me than how you're playing. Just win games and things will take care of itself. Certain teams, like the Minnesota Twins, have been like a mini disaster.
Yeah.
A team like that should be panicking, who's fallen so far back. But the other teams, I wouldn't get so hyped about it right now. So if they're 5 games back, so there's plenty of time,
Yeah, there is. But I mean, Jack, this is a significant part of the season right now. And not saying that any of these teams can come back from 10, 14 games. It's happened in the past, but it's very rare. So, right now, as we're speaking, I'm very impressed with the Giants. I don't think anybody expected them to come up and be in first over the Dodgers or the Padres. So I'm very impressed with what they've done. And it doesn't look like they're giving up that little momentum they got. It's a well-built team. And that's probably my biggest surprise. The Red Sox I expected to be competitive. I don't know where they'll end up at the end of the year. But the Giants, I didn't see that happening. I thought it was all Dodgers and the Padres there. So, great job by the Giants this year. I'm very impressed. Even if they don't make the playoffs, just doing what they did, I'm very impressed with. I'll tell you.
I am, but you just mentioned the Dodgers and the Padres. That's going to be their biggest problem at the end of the day. A couple of elite teams. Fernando Tatis having some shoulder issues. You don't know how that's going to play out the rest of the year. And you take the NL Central over there. I mean, a highly competitive division. The Brewers, the Cubs, the Reds, the Cardinals. Like, they're all bunched up a few games within one another. And, we'll kind of have to see how that race played out. And Trevor Bauer leaving the Reds, going to the Dodgers. Imagine he was with the Reds. I mean, that could have been he could have been a difference maker. Ultimately, let's see where they wind up this year. And, of course, you have your disasters in baseball, like one of your favorite teams, the Baltimore Orioles, and then the Arizona Diamondbacks. I was supposed to go when I was in Florida to an Arizona Diamondback Miami Marlin game, but the ticket agency messed up my tickets. When I got to the ballpark, I couldn't get in. At the time, though, the Arizona Diamondbacks were playing the Miami Marlins. I told myself, hey, this isn't a bad game. The Diamondbacks had 15 wins and 13 losses, 15 and 13. Yes. Since that time, they've gone, like 6 and 38? I mean, it's been like,
It's been crazy, Jack. I mean, you know why I kid the Orioles a lot, because this was a powerhouse baseball team at one time. We're talking World Series champions. We're talking first, second place every year. And it wasn't that long ago, Jack, really. I mean, I guess you could say maybe time flies, but to see them fall so hard is kind of sad to me. You think of the great teams they had winning World Series and stuff. And, you know, I don't know if it's because of the way baseball is this year, or it's just that Baltimore, their ownership, their management, I don't know. I feel really sad that a great franchise like that has been this way consistently for the last few years.
Well, Mac, I think time does fly because it's been a while since they've really been winners.
Yeah.
But what bothers me about the Baltimore Orioles, when they were doing poorly, as they've been doing for a number of years, we keep hearing, wow, they have a really good farm system. Yeah. So you think they're going to turn it around. The same thing with the Tigers. We hear, one of the best farm systems in baseball. It's just a matter of time. But it hasn't been happening. Sometimes it happens. We heard that about the Houston Astros when they were awful. The great farm system, it's a matter of time before they start winning. And they did. They did. We hear that about the Miami Marlins. The Miami Marlins did take a step forward last year from a disastrous team to a playoff team. But was it because of the shortened season? And now the Miami Marlins, they're in last place. They're like, but the year has a while to go. They're like, but they haven't taken the additional step forward. Sometimes it's worse, Mac, for a team to take too big of a step forward one year because you set the bar at a place that it shouldn't be at yet. Sometimes it's better you take little steps forward to the ultimate goal, and people can keep saying you're improving. Let's say you have a team that won 62 games one year. They win 70 the next year. People say, okay, a little improvement. Then 78 the next year. Okay, we're getting better than 84. But if you go from 62 wins to 85, then the following year, if you're playing 500 ball, it's completely unacceptable. Yeah, okay, so I think that's what maybe happened with the Miami Marlins. Making the playoffs, set the bar a little higher, a little quicker on their timetable, and that might work against them as far as perception goes.
Well, let's talk a little boxing before Robert gets in. Naoya Inoue wins the World Bantam, the championship. He, I guess, defends his title. He beats Michael Dasmariñas with a lot of body shots, Jack. I mean, he dropped him 3 times in 3 rounds. He finally stopped him in the 3rd. A lot of people compare him to the Japanese bantamweight Mike Tyson. He's a very, very hard puncher. He's built very well for a bantamweight. He looks like a little muscle guy. So is this guy for real? Is this guy going to be around for a while as champion, Jack?
This guy's for real. He's exciting. And in this case, the fans who compare him to little Mike Tyson are correct. He provides that type of excitement. Now, the question is, some people ask, can a little Japanese fighter become a mainstream star? Can he? But I'm going to ask you this. Years ago, can you imagine a little Filipino fighter becoming a mainstream star? And he did in Manny Pacquiao. But when he was coming up, Manny Pacquiao, you thought, how marketable can he be? Okay, little Filipino fighter, and he turned out to be a sensational fighter, one of the great draws in boxing. But even Manny Pacquiao, as great as he was at its best, and Manny Pacquiao's always been an exciting fight in the sense that he throws a lot of punches, was never as explosive as Inoue was. Now, Manny Pacquiao started as a flyweight, 112-pounder, and he worked his way up to welterweight, the 147-pound division. Inoue is gently going to work his way, up the weight divisions as time goes along. We don't know how long he's going to be in boxing. Manny Pacquiao's 42 years old and still going at it, and he has a big fight with Errol Spence in August. But Inoue is, a little package of dynamite. exciting to watch, entertaining. And if you think of boxing as being an entertainment type business, he's one of the more entertaining fighters you could see. But the public is very funny, Mac. They kind of fall into gimmicks and images for buying fights, because one of the most boring great fighters you could see is Floyd Mayweather. But he turned into the biggest name in the sport. Floyd rarely provided excitement in the ring, rarely provided excitement. Anui provides a ton of excitement. They just got to get him the right opponents, and they got to get him in a mega fight. Somehow they have to find someone in and around this weight class who they think might be able to beat him, and everyone gets excited about that fight. Till then, he's going to be more like a great entertainer, knocking out overmatched opponents until they find him the right guy to go against.
He'll probably have to move up a weight division or two to get that, Jack. So we'll see what happens with him. Backstage right now, we got Sports Scope host Robert Butler, who joins us every Sunday around 8:30. And he provides us with a lot of opinions and commentary on the things he knows best, Jack, which is sports. So let's bring up Robert. Maybe we'll talk to him about, some social events or something one day, but we're not doing that today, Jack. Today it's all sports.
Robert's a hard line. I don't think we should talk about
social conscious. Social conscious.
Whatever he says, it doesn't reflect my opinion. I don't know what he's going to say. It doesn't necessarily reflect my opinion.
Right.
Let me leave it at that.
I was talking
they
about
have that those little words. It doesn't necessarily reflect the views of this station.
Yeah, well, that's while I'm producing it, it always will reflect the views of the station. But anyway, I was talking about dog care, grooming cats, social stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm not going to get too deep. So, Robert.
Yeah. Interesting
to me, okay? The Utah Jazz during the regular season was unstoppable, especially in the beginning of the year. They had like a 10 game, 12 game, 15 game lead. It was crazy. We're looking at the Utah Jazz as a sensation. I mean, these guys were playing and beating everybody. And then they come to the first round that they play in. And the Clippers, even without Kawhi, and Jazz had them right where they wanted.
Yeah.
Right? Had them right where they want them. Could put them away. The superstars sitting on the bench. And even though we would have said, well, they beat him without Kawhi, still they beat him. But in turn, they lose without the Clippers playing Kawhi in the last couple of games. Is the season for Utah, because they were so good in the regular season, is this a bust?
Yeah, I mean, I know that they had injuries. Mitchell was playing with a bummed ankle. Conley didn't play. Mike Conley only played game 6. But, they blew a 25-point lead the other day, guys. They're way, way too 3-ball dependent. Live by, die by. No post play. Rudy Gobert was basically just knocking the ball back. No mid-range game whatsoever. Both of those games, game 5 and 6. But you got to give a hats off to Ty Lue. Great coaching job. Kept those guys motivated. Kept playing with that lineup. And then they even won 2 straight without Kawhi Leonard. So, yeah, it was a major letdown. Remember, guys, at one time they were top 5 Utah in offense and defense in the league. So, yeah, it's hard to get that 1 seed. I think they really blew an opportunity.
I really believe that, I know you want to win the regular season. You want that seed. You want to play the supposedly worst team in your division. It was a little messed up this year with the Lakers where they were and everything because of the injuries and stuff. But I mean, that's why you work all year. It seemed that some teams weren't as interested as others. Maybe Utah was a little bit more interested than the Clippers, and maybe the 76ers were a little bit more interested than the Nets. I don't know. I know it worked. It didn't work in the Nets' favor because they would have been playing the Hawks, and I think they would have beat the Hawks even without who they have playing right now. But it just seemed to me when you could do something like that, when you dominate and supposedly a better conference. And all of a sudden, the first round comes around. You're up 2-0. You got that big lead, and then you fold. And, man, I don't know how I would feel right now if I was a Utah Jazz player. I really don't, Robert.
Yeah, I mean it reflects Snyder, the head coach there, tremendously for not making that. Yeah, they were shooting scared out there. A lot of bad shots. They got hot early. They wanted to lean too much on that three ball. And one of those regular season games, they shot the Lakers out of the gym when the Lakers were total back in February when they were totally healthy, and they just leaned too much in on that. You still need a mid range game, guys. These are a lot of throwback style playoff games, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. I think we talk about the guards a lot, and it's the forwards that are doing all the dirty work and coming up with 25 points and 15 rebounds, and that's to me what wins the game. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, look at Joe Harris. I mean, I'm not talking about the Nets, but I mean, he was awful. No actual role play, no mid range game. It was a three or Durant, do whatever you want to do. And then he just totally ran out of gas. I mean, no balance there. And you see that you still have to have a mid-range game. That three don't fall every night, guys.
Well, you have to have a bench, and the Nets officially played 8 guys, only 7, because Claxton just came in to guard an inbounds pass. Yeah. I mean, I was, so he was in for a quick cup of coffee. So they played 7 guys the whole game. I mean, all the guys that did the same with Milwaukee in reality, but no one on the Nets bench even took a shot during the game. So we kept hearing all year long about this great Nets bench. I mean, what the heck are they talking about? And you know what's interesting? All the teams that get eliminated that don't win the NBA title, they have to reevaluate. They always reevaluate. Do we have to make any changes? And they always look at their star player. They want to keep their franchise player happy, all the teams, to see whether they should make a move. But with the Utah Jazz, I mean, what move can they realistically make? They have no one to trade off. And they did have a heck of a year. So I guess in their case, they stand pat, and just come back next year and see can they win with this group. But it's got to be demoralizing, especially have a 25-point lead in the second half. And you're about to go home and force a game 7 against the Clippers, who would be playing in Utah without Leonard. And, I mean, they really like blue at the Jazz. It's going to be an awful off season for them.
Yeah, they got to go get a wingman that could get some buckets down low. It doesn't have to be a mega star, just maybe another role player,
Like a PJ Tucker type, a really gritty type player. But you have to give something up for those type guys normally, unless you're lucky and you could get one as a free agent. But star players are hard. But sometimes you wonder, we don't have in the NBA blockbuster deal star player for star player. Let's say Portland was going to move on from Damian Lillard. You could talk about star player for star player. I would trade Kyrie Irving if I were the Nets, if I could get Damian Lillard even up. That's me. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I agree. You're gonna have to take that whole attitude with that too. So I would, if I was the other team, I don't know if I would want Kyrie in my locker room. So that comes with the whole package there. So now the Lakers won last year, and everybody said, and I argued with everybody. The same thing with Major League Baseball. Oh, it doesn't mean anything because it's the season is shorter. The best teams came to the top. It's a bunch of nonsense, as we see right now with full seasons. The home run leader is not even close to the home run leader. The Lakers with 2 superstars, legitimate superstars, are playing the whole year now. LeBron's older. He's going to get injured more often. He's not going to be able to play as much on injury. Davis has always had injuries no matter where he's played. He's always come under some kind of injury. Some big guys get injured more than others. Davis is a legitimate superstar. There's no doubt about it. So you're the Lakers. You have a rough season. Both your superstars are injured. And even though they can still take over a game when they're healthy, with LeBron being older and Davis's history, don't you need somebody else, Robert? I mean, it can't be just those two.
Well, they can't afford to bring anybody. I looked at it. They have somewhat of a cap, and they have these really high luxury tax. It's hard to understand how the basketball dynamic works in NBA. It's not like as easy as a football where we have one hard cap for everybody. So the best option really would be, guys, to trade Anthony Davis. But that being said, Rich Paul is his agent and LeBron connection. That would really stir things up. Davis does not have a no trade clause, but that's probably not going to happen. Realistically, you got to tell Anthony Davis to come in shape. There was reports that he was not in shape at the start of camp. That's been a big thing. Gary Payton said something about this with all these injuries when Kawhi Leonard, that it's more of a players' league now, and coaches and staff are not riding these players enough like they used to come in shape. They're not penalizing them with fines coming into camp out of shape like they did 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Look at all these injuries. So it's one of those when you got an air quote players league and you give the players 20-somethings and 30-somethings too much power. You got these guys out of shape. You saw how they were when they were fully healthy. I mean, they're a pretty tough defensive team, and had a lot of open shooters with the players they got if they're healthy.
I don't know whether I agree with you, Rob, to say that they're coming out of shape. I mean, we don't know. I'm a big believer the NBA players have a tremendous amount of pride in their game, and they do come in shape. But it's a stop-and-go game. You're making a lot of quick movements, and you become a little more injury-prone. But I do have to admit, years ago, the great NBA players, they didn't play hurt the way the modern guys did. But keep in mind, the players from decades ago didn't have the off-season regimen that they have today. As far as Anthony Davis goes, a year ago, the Lakers won the NBA championships. I wouldn't get down on anyone there. Things happen.
Short season.
Short season, but the Lakers have something going for them that other franchises don't. It's a destination place. Players on other teams want to go to LA to play for the Lakers. They don't want to go to other cities like Utah, Milwaukee, because Los Angeles is a glamour city. It's a glamour franchise, and you got LeBron there. So players are going to want to go there if they can work it out to play with the Lakers.
Well, Kawhi Leonard misses about 18 games a year average. That was a big thing. I'm not a big Greg Popovich guy, but you know what? I mean, the team doctor said he was fine, but he just wanted to still lay out. That's that players' league thing. Gary Payton, Jordan, all those guys, 79, 82, 81 games, and you didn't see any of these injuries. I think Isaiah Thomas got injured 1 year. In the finals, and it may be Magic, but it's nothing like this. I mean, LeBron made a big fuss about it, guys, and then the league said, no, that's the 3-year average.
I agree, Robert.
LeBron on that.
Robert, you ain't got to convince me. I agree with you 100%. There is no way those players are getting in the shape they did back then. I don't care what their regiments are. They can have all the personal trainers, all the equipment they want. They're not doing what Larry Bird did. They're not doing what Magic Johnson did. They're not doing what Dr. J did, keeping themselves in playing condition. They're not doing that. Playing condition and working out are two different things. When Larry Bird lost their first championship, the next day he started running the Boston Garden every day to make sure he could play and he had the wind. And what I'm seeing right now, and take Kyrie out of the equation, because Kyrie, I have no idea why he misses some games. He's worse than Chicago Bulls Dennis Rodman just taking off, and when he taking off and going.
They don't even tell you. He just
Kyrie's worse than him. Yeah, he's worse than he is. Listen, the players today, Jack, I don't care what you say, in every sport, every sport, are nowhere in playing condition as they were another 20 years ago.
Well, they're getting injured in baseball more so than years ago, too. So it's not focus on the NBA. I don't want anyone to have the idea that the NBA players are dogging it, because Kawhi Leonard in his right mind would not have missed the last 2 games with everything on the line unless he was genuinely injured. Kyrie Irving, as critical as I've been of him, you have to believe he was legitimately injured. He absolutely would have played last night if he was able to. I couldn't imagine him being in shape to, contribute something and not being out on the floor.
There's a
So
pattern.
you got to believe he's legitimately injured.
The
There's
NBA
a
said
pattern.
it's a pattern, yeah. And did
There's
you
a
guys see the picture of Harden in November when he first went to the December when he first went to Houston? He looked like he had a beer gut.
Yep.
I mean, it was all over.
Well, he
the
wanted
internet.
to get traded, so he came to camp out of shape.
Was it
He
Sam?
wanted to get traded. He showed up because he wanted to get his money. He didn't want to hold out. He was frustrated. He didn't want to argue much, but everyone knew he wanted to get traded, but he wanted to handle it a certain way, his own way. He showed up. He didn't really dog it, but he wasn't in the best of shape, and he was getting a message to Houston, and Houston wasn't going to win. Listen, come to think of it, PJ Tucker was with Houston. Harden was with Houston. It's ironic they're playing against one another yesterday with the
Right.
Nets and the Bucks, and both were teammates early in the year, with the Houston Rockets.
Yeah. Tucker
Yeah,
did.
listen.
Good.
I think, Robert, everybody said there shouldn't be asterisks. Well, you can put asterisk on every category if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Because the game would change. But last year, maybe the best teams the year before kind of raised to the top. But that didn't mean they were the best teams that year. They just had less games and they had to be out fast. And the better experienced teams, of course, ended up on top. But this year, it's proved something else to me. It proves that because the Lakers won the championship last year, doesn't mean if there was the full amount of games, they would have won the year before. So, I mean, that's the only thing that tells me. We don't know for sure, but I'm just saying a longer season is a lot worse on the body than a very short season. So,
Yeah.
What is your prediction right now, Robert? I mean, we got the Suns and the Clips.
Yeah.
We got the Bucks and the winner of the Hawks 76ers game. I'm not giving the 76ers the win yet. I mean, I that was my prediction to go to the finals, but I'm not giving it to them because the Hawks have been playing like crazy. They've been hanging in there. They've been coming back and winning games. And Embiid right now, it looks like to me, and Jack made this point, I watched it too. It looks like a lot to me that they're just throwing the ball to Embiid and say, win the game. I don't see anybody else besides Curry a little bit stepping up. Harris played one good game or two good games during the whole series so far. He's got to play better. Simmons is just, I don't know what happened to Simmons. I mean, he's kind of disappeared. And they're throwing the ball to Embiid and say, hey, win the game. You're not going to win a championship playing like that, Robert. So who's your prediction to win this thing?
Right. That's the same thing with Kevin Durant. I mean, they're just throwing the one guy. That's where, these guys don't want to take coaching. You got to say the Bucks. I mean, a team that I was about to write Budenholzer's coach and big obituary for getting fired. Now they got a shot to win the championship because Chris Paul tested positive for COVID. Guys, he's out today. He could possibly miss the first 4 games. I mean, they could possibly get swept. I don't think that'll
games.
happen.
Well, 4 games on the COVID thing.
It's possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
I know
that's
terrible.
Unbelievable. It's hard to believe because he's missed at this point 4 games because of the COVID test.
And he's vaccinated. It's crazy. I mean, that's what I read today.
If all the players are vaccinated, what is the problem?
Well, he tested positive even though he's vaccinated.
Right. But you get some false positives. I kind of wonder, guys, don't laugh about this. It just crossed my mind. Could you imagine the players playing with a mask on? Would they allow that? Could they breathe running up and down the court?
If I was Chris Paul, I would look into it, man. I'm trying to win.
I'll tell you, yeah. I mean, you may see some suits if this stuff continues with COVID. You may see players and unions filing suits here pretty soon. And that's in football, too. There's other stories about that with one player refusing to get the shot, and they're saying he's got to go through certain things. Anyway, I just said that too, Robert. I said Bucks are really the only healthy favorite right now. They have a shot here. If they blow it against the Hawks, or against the 76ers, I'm not picking them to do anything anymore. So that's what I'm saying.
Right.
NCAA football came up. There was a top secret committee who's been working on it for 2 years, a new playoff system, and they've supposedly studied 100 different platforms. And I mean, I don't know how much these guys were paid extra, but I would take 2 years too if I was getting paid to do extra work to do a top secret thing here. So they come up with basically what I've been talking about. It's just not fully yet. That I know we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Every division winner in Class 1A should have a shot in the playoffs, and they should do it sort of like the NFL. So if you were right now, Robert, if you were in charge of the NCAA, you're the head guy. I mean, do you do this right away? Do you wait to implement it? Do you make changes to it as it goes? Or do you just, go ahead and just do it? Let's get it done.
Yeah, I've been back and forth on it because I do not want the regular season guys to get watered down. That's what makes it special. That's what makes September, those Labor Day games, and October special. You see what I'm saying? But as far as a 12 team that's been talked about, I understand getting other regions of the country involved. You're getting more of a national audience. You're getting more of the Pac-12 teams involved. So I rate out the pros and cons, and it seems like the pros will outlet. Plus, check this out, guys. You'll have more players playing instead of going to the NFL draft, skipping the bowl games. I mean, possibly. There'll probably still be some players here and there that may skip the playoff and go. But I don't know. I think, if you got a chance to win a national championship, I think a lot of those players will go ahead and play, and you'll get to see it. These bowl games are terrible anyways. I don't watch half of them,
Yeah. I just
want to get exciting for them anyways.
I just think, Robert, if they've got a plan in place, and I know you're not going to make everybody happy, you implement it this year. Just get it out there. Let's get it going. It's going to be some problems. There's going to be some adjustments you're going to have to make. But why wait? They're talking about waiting for 2 years to do this. I don't understand that. Do it, get it done, and work out the kinks as you go. I mean, you can't make everybody happy, but I guarantee you one thing. If you get more schools involved, it will grow. The playoffs will grow. The NCAA will grow some more. And then you can start, with all your money you're making, then you can even do other things that I think they should do. So I say if you got a plan, I don't care what it is, it's better than 4 teams, the same 4 teams every year. That's all I know.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as some people are already bringing up paying the players a stipend and all that. If you got that much extra money, we've got the NIL coming in for players to capitalize on their likeness. Why not offer more academic scholarships, for everybody? Because everybody can't play sports, we all can't play sports. So do a good thing with it rather than just make it all sport related,
Yeah, and stop giving everybody else raises. Yeah, stop giving the athletic directors and the commissioners of each league or raises, and let's start giving back to the schools. Last thing for you, Robert.
Yeah.
The second list.
Yeah.
Yankees are kind of doing a little bit better. If they don't make a move, if they end up with a bad season, because of the pressure, there's going to be a lot of pressure. Does Cashman and Boone, are they gone in your opinion? You're not a Yankee fan. You're not involved. Just looking at it from the outside. If the Yankees have a bad season, in other words, they finish around 500, they're in third place. Do these two guys going to go? Are they gone?
Well, I look at it this way, guys. They got the either first or second highest payroll in the Major League Baseball every single year. They haven't won a World Series since 2009. That's, you got to look at that. 3 years with Boone. I didn't know he'd been there 3 years. I think definitely go do away with Aaron Boone. Now, Cashman been there since 1998. If you got a better GM in mind, I would make a change. Bill Walsh, the former coach of the 49ers, says every team, not unless you're dominating and winning at a high level, should change executives and coaches every 10 years because staff and players tune you out. Bill Walsh, founder of the West Coast Offense.
Yeah, that's true. He did say that. And the last topic for you, Robert. Aaron Rodgers may sit out this year. Green Bay still will have a decent team without him. But are the Bears, with Andy Dalton, the favorite to win the NFC North this year if Rodgers doesn't play?
In my opinion, no. It's Minnesota, guys. Nobody's talking about Minnesota. CBS has got an article out. Oh, they've got like a board of the top 10 best off seasons. Cleveland Browns #1, Tampa Bay signing back everybody #2. Number 6 was Minnesota. They re-signed Sheldon Richardson, former Brown that was released because of cap implications. They brought in Patrick Peterson, guys. They had a lot of injuries on defense. Former cornerback.
Patrick Peterson is not the same player he was. He's a shell of the player he was. He has name value, future Hall of Famer. He's on his last legs. Not impressed.
I've scouted him every single week because I play fantasy. He's not dominant. He's not Ramsey, but he's still top 10, guys.
That's why Arizona's replacing him with Malcolm Butler, who's on the downside.
Well, I think he chose to leave. He wanted to leave. I like Minnesota. I think they bounce back. Defensive players want to play for Mike Zimmer. They've got that running game in place. Irv Smith, Justin Jefferson. Cousins is not a world beater. But remember, they made the playoffs the year before last. They had a lot of injuries. They had a lot of young players last year in the secondary. All that's going to be back. I like the balance. Minnesota. I like Minnesota to get to the playoffs, even if Rodgers comes back. Not to win the division, but get a wild card shot.
You know, the only problem with that, Robert, is the quarterback you mentioned. Monday night playoffs, for some reason, I don't know if it's in his head now or not, but man, he can't do it. He cannot play in that big atmosphere. I don't know what it is. He's a decent quarterback. He's definitely not a top 10 quarterback, but he's just outside that. I mean, he's a decent quarterback. Big games, he folds, and I don't know what it is, Rob.
Well, they went down to the Saints in 2019 and beat them in New Orleans. So you got to give him some credit for that.
Yeah, I do.
Kirk Cousins, the Vikings are going to have to decide. I think Kirk Cousins' contract might be up at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I believe it's up at the end of the year. They're going to have to decide whether they're going to extend him, whether he's going to be long-term. It's easy to forget the Jets wanted to sign him pretty badly, and he elected to go to Minnesota. So Kirk Cousins is going to be in demand around the NFL if he does leave the Vikings.
Well, they brought in Keelan Mond, the quarterback from Texas A&M. Some are comparing him to Dak Prescott. I think this guy is going to push Cousins. And quite frankly, if he's playing decent, yes, I wouldn't move on for Cousins. We know what his ceiling is, and you're paying him $30+ million a year. They could really have a strong push if this guy's a fair quarterback. They got a good roster, but Cousins is limited. Excuse me, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. If he was in the right, I guess if he was in the right position in the Super Bowl, I'm not saying he couldn't guide a team to win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that. It just seems big games and him just don't get along. I don't know why. Robert, we're going to let you go, my friend. Thank you for stopping in as you always do, folks. Go check out Robert on Sports Scope with a K. I'm telling you right now, you won't be disappointed. He has a lot of information, does great with fantasy, talks about sports, highlights, players, great opinions. Robert, again, thank you for coming in. We'll see you
Thanks, guys. Hey, we're 12 weeks away from week 1, by the way.
Yes, we are, Rob.
I'm glad you got that football question in.
Yes, I am too. All right, Robert. Have a good day, my friend.
See you guys.
All right. So there you go. Robert Butler with his weekly spot here on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Always love having him come in. He's very opinionated and strong with his opinions, and normally he has the facts to back him up, Jack, even though he might make the facts more favorable to him. So I love having him on. We'll be right back after these messages, folks. Stay tuned for a 2-time Super Bowl champion, Dallas Cowboy legend, Jim Jeffco will be joining us after the break. We'll be right back.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. We just had Robert Butler on with us from Sportscope. And, Jack, we got one of my favorite men in all the world, former Dallas Cowboy. Yes, folks, you know I'm a Giants fan, but I can't help it. This guy is great. He was great when he played, and he's great still as he comes on almost every Sunday with us. I mean, it's going to be more and more as we go along. I'm delaying bringing him on because I love to watch him backstage laughing at everything I say. I think he's laughing at my hat. I really do, Jack. But anyway, let's bring the great Jim Jeffcoat up on the show today. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing great, and I love your hat.
Hey, Jim, how you doing? We're not going to go over the Dallas Cowboys record game by game. I decided with Mac because we came to the conclusion you'd have the Cowboys going 15-2 this year. We did. So it's not going to work. Having you part of that, it's just not going to work.
I didn't have them going 15-2.
Yes,
16-1. You had them losing at Tampa Bay. You had them losing one
Actually,
game.
I had them winning at Tampa Bay.
Oh,
I think they're going to be like probably 10-7.
Wow.
I'm
Well,
being honest. I think they're going to be competitive, but it's tough out there. This is not an easy world.
Yes, Jim. Just to let you know, we did cover the Giants record. So this was the combined average that we had as we went through the locals. We had, we had the Bills at 12-5, the Pats at 11-6, the Jets at 7-9 average, the Eagles average at 5-12, and the Giants average at 10-7. So if you're correct in what you're saying, it's going to be a dogfight between the Cowboys and the Giants this year.
I really believe it is. I think that the reason I don't pick Washington is because they're playing all the first place teams, obviously winning the division. The Giants, on the other hand, have an easier schedule than either the Cowboys or the Redskins. And I think the Giants are going to take advantage of that. I think their running game is top notch. The quarterback, he's getting better. Let's be honest. And I think they have some weapons to make a move. I would say right now that the Giants would be probably, if they're not the division winner, it's going to be a dogfight between them and the Cowboys.
Very, very good. So Jim, you're on with us for half an hour. We were going to go through the AFC West with you, but I've got more important stuff to talk to you about. I want to use your knowledge as a player and some of the things that are going around in the NFL today that, me and Jack have talked about this matter ad nauseum so far. And, of course, that's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers basically wanting not to play with the Green Bay Packers, not because he doesn't love the fans, not because he doesn't love the players, not because he doesn't love the coaches, not even because he doesn't love. It's supposedly because he doesn't like the GM. Now, why I'm asking you this is because you were on a team like Green Bay, who's been at the past 2 championships. Let's be honest. They've been in the championship the last 2 games and haven't won it. And I know a lot of teams wish they were in that position. So Troy Aikman's coming up. He's making around a little over $35 million a year when you're playing, say. Yeah. And he decides he doesn't like the GM. So he doesn't care, in my opinion, about you, about the team, about the players he's playing with. He's going to sit out because he's a personal rift with the GM. How would you feel, you and your teammates, but specifically you, about your quarterback who decides, well, I really don't care about what happens to the team. I just want what I want. Would you personally be upset with Troy Aikman?
You got a great question there. There's some underlying issues there. Why is there a conflict between him and the GM? That's what we're not knowing. What did the GM say to upset this Aaron Rodgers? Because Aaron Rodgers is obviously one of the best players in the NFL. And what did he say? Did he tell him that he's got a couple more years left, or did he tell him things? So we don't know what's the underlying reason, because he doesn't seem to me like the player that's going to go against his team. Like you said, the fans, there is something going on behind the scenes. Maybe they told him, hey, we're not giving you a new contract. We're not in it. And I could understand that, because what is he, 36, 37 years old? Right. So I can understand that. And even Tom Brady had to move because he wanted to play. Maybe there's some underlying things that.
But Jim, I don't think it's underlying. I think it's pretty simple. They moved up in the first round to draft a quarterback. It wasn't that they just drafted Jordan Love, but they moved up to draft him, and they didn't call Aaron Rodgers in advance to inform him they might do it. Aaron Rodgers, you see, it's a little different from when you played on your team, because when you played for the Cowboys, would you agree with me? There were a lot of powerful personalities on that team, a lot of leadership, a number of guys. I don't have to name them.
We have
Packers. Aaron Rodgers is the guy. Clearly, there's no one close to him, personality-wise.
Jack, you make a good point, but here's my question: when they drafted Aaron Rodgers, who did they draft him to replace? Brett Favre, right? Do you think they called Brett Favre and say, "Hey, Brett, we're going to draft Aaron Rodgers in the first round"?
But Alex Smith said when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, they let him know in advance what they were going to do. They kept him in the loop.
Some teams do that. Some teams don't. They didn't keep him in the loop. They didn't keep Brett Favre in the loop for when they drafted Aaron Rodgers.
But as soon as you draft, would you agree with me? As soon as you draft a guy that high, the clock starts on the departure of the starter. That started the clock on Aaron Rodgers' departure, and he wants to leave on his own terms.
I agree totally, but you're exactly right. You like to leave on your own terms, but unfortunately, in the game of football, in the game of any pro sports, it's very unlikely that you leave on your own terms.
Well, when you went to Buffalo, did they get anyone? Did they draft anyone that you saw was going to replace you? Did anything speed it along? You know, the clock to go elsewhere.
No question. Marcellus Wiley. They drafted Marcellus Wiley, and that speeded. And I had it. I was in my 14th year, and the next year I had an injury that I hadn't missed a game in 14 years. And then I had that scope my last year of playing. So they were accelerating, just like you said. They didn't call me and say, hey, we're going to draft Marcellus Wiley. You know, that's just the way the game is.
But, Jim, again, the original point, because Jack likes to move around. I'm asking you, as a player on the Cowboys, and Troy Aikman said, you know, I'm not playing because of what happened between me and the GM. And here you're on your way to one step away from the Super Bowl. And he's basically, to me, saying, you know, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm not looking out for you at all. I'm looking out for me. To me, that's the message. How would you feel towards that quarterback?
I would try to, like I said, the thing is that you got to understand, he is in the twilight of his career. We don't want to say that, but that's true. And he has to look at him because every year is precious to him playing, because that might be the last year he ever plays. You know, he might end up being a Jeopardy host, but right now in the sport of football, he's in the twilight. We don't know. He might be like Brady. He might have 6 or 7 more years. Probably unlikely because Brady is unique in that sense. But to your point is that Troy probably wouldn't have done it because somebody would have probably grabbed him by the neck and said, hey, Troy, that's things off the field. We do our things on the field.
Jim, Troy Aikman had problems with Barry Switzer, and he didn't want to be responsible for the Cowboys firing Barry Switzer if it was going to come to that. He didn't want his name attached to that. But there was talk, you'd know better than I would, being friends with Michael Irvin. There was a time where Troy Aikman wasn't happy with some of Michael Irvin's, reportedly, Michael Irvin's habits, you know, and he wanted Barry Switzer to do something about it, to get him a little more focused. And Barry Switzer reportedly wasn't the greatest disciplinarian. He wasn't like Jimmy Johnson, who could get the point across, reportedly.
Well,
okay, you'd know better than I would.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Here's the difference is that you got to remember, Jimmy coached Michael in college. Jimmy told Michael, basically, you told the line, all right, I'm going to get rid of you. He was, and people don't know this, he was thinking about trading Michael if he didn't toe the line. People don't know that. Barry, the way I've always explained Barry was he's the grandfather you always wanted. He was a bootlegger's son. I'm serious. He was a bootlegger's son. And he would go on the plane and tell every player after a game he loved them. And I asked him one day, why do you do that? He said, they'll never hear that. He said, they'll probably never hear that all day. And that was Barry. Barry was totally different. He was, hey, they're men. I'm going to treat them like men. But sometimes you're right. You're right. Jimmy had to put the hammer down. He knew who he had to put the hammer down on and who he didn't. Barry wasn't that kind. Everybody was his friend. Everybody was a good person. And Michael is a good person. But you also have to understand that you have to be a little more controlling with certain players. And even today, you know players that if they don't have that strong disciplinarian, they need the Belichicks. They need guys like that. They need it. They don't, if they see kindness as a weakness. Some players see kindness as a weakness. And that's the issues you run into.
Let me ask you a question, because this always intrigued me. You know, I never coached that level, Jim, but I've coached in my life a few years. It seems to me, we talk about disciplinarians, we talk about, you know, Vince Lombardi, we talk about Bill Parcells, we talk about guys that look like they didn't take nothing. I mean, they were very out loud about how much of a disciplinarians they were. But it seems to me that all the players that play under them love these guys. You would think that, they would have a little bit of animosity, but for the most part, I mean, they just love these men. And that's crazy to me in a way.
Yeah, you make excellent questions. I mean, and you ask excellent questions. What happens is the best way to explain it is most players that are successful love structure. They hate chaos. They want to know where they got to be at, what time, and that's what Jimmy was really good at. You had to be here. The doors closed 5 minutes before the meeting started. If you're not in there, you're not coming to the meeting. Things that they knew their structure. They knew where they had to be, what time they had to be. Michael Irvin, for a perfect example, was we were playing the Minnesota Vikings, and Michael missed the plane. He was late. Jimmy, our director of football operations said, "Do you want to wait for him?" He said, "No, we're going." Michael had to pay for his ticket to Minnesota, if you remember correctly, and he got there, and Jimmy sat him for the first half. And they asked him, why didn't he sit him for the all the game? And Jimmy said, listen, he said, you got to understand, that's Michael Irvin. I'm mad at him right now, but I also want to win games. So things like that. You have to have, we thrive structure. Players thrive structure. They'll complain and you'll hear them just say things about it, but they want structure. They want to know what happens next. And that
but
makes
Jim,
it for you.
Jimmy Johnson said he had 2 sets of rules because he cut a player for falling asleep at a team meeting.
Yes.
But he said if Troy Aikman fell asleep, he'd tap him on the shoulder and say, "Wake up, Troy."
That's exactly right. And you know the reason why that is. Jimmy, long time, told me that when I was a player, he said, some players have this much leeway with me, some players have that leeway, and I replace them when I can. He said, I have my core players because they know, I know they'll run through walls for me. And then he said, those other players, they're on borrowed time because once I can replace them, I'm going to replace them. And he was honest about it. He was straightforward and honest. He said, I have my core guys. And Michael was one of those core guys. Because he knew that Michael would give everything he had on the field. And he felt that he could control him off the because if you remember, the issue started after Jimmy left. The real bad issue. But before, and that's nothing against Barry, because I love Barry. Barry Switzer is one of the finest people I've ever had. But Jimmy had Michael when he was really young, coming into college, and he basically groomed him to be what he was.
So he's like his dad. I mean, he was there when he was a kid, and here comes Dad back, and you better not mess around too much, or Dad put the hammer on you.
Exactly.
So Buck asked you, did you play under Switzer? Yeah, he played under Switzer. He played under Tom Landry. Yes, sir, Buck. He was there for a while with the Cowboys. So
I played under all of them.
Yes, you did.
You won one game yesterday. Mac and myself on Saturdays, we have a debate show. And one of the questions was the most embarrassing play in sports history you may have seen. Even though we didn't name it, it kind of came up in the Super Bowl when Don Beebe hit, who did he deprive of the touchdown? I'm having a brain cramp. Yeah.
When Leon put the ball out and he stripped it. See, here's the interesting thing. I told him we could have went down in history. They would have been playing the play because I sacked the quarterback, caused the fumble. He picks it up. Carelessly, he puts the ball before he crosses the end zone. I mean, I could be on NFL Network. People who have to be, their kids, their grandkids. It'll be 100 years from now. They'll be talking about this, but now they're talking about it in a different way.
Yes.
But I still love Leon.
Yes. So Jim, let's take a look at, and I saw this today about some big signings in the NFC East. Rookie contracts coming up. The first one, of course, is Saquon Barkley. He's been hurt the last 2 years, and when he's healthy, he's dynamic. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Barry Sanders. Got the move, he can turn on a dime, got a little power. What do the Giants do? I mean, do the Giants wait out this year to see if he gets injured again, or should they go ahead and just sign him to that extension now and get it over with?
I think what you're going to see in that situation is probably going to be sometime in the season, and it'll probably be halfway through the season to see how his health is. But like Elliott, he's a rare talent, but he has to stay healthy. And that's the big thing because he's a powerful young man. I mean, and Jack would know this. His father was a boxer. I mean, so he does have if you look at his physique, he does have a boxer's physique. And sometimes that's a little bit dangerous playing football because of all the muscles and the muscles bruise. You know, you probably, you want a little padding. But I think he's a rare talent myself. If he can stay healthy, he can be scary.
Right.
And so to answer your question, I think it's going to be a mid-season signing.
Okay. All right. You agree with that, Jack? I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, well, I occasionally speak to his uncle Iram Barkley. We speak on the phone now, now and then too. But he's a weapon. Saquon Barkley's a weapon, and there are not that many weapons in football. I look at him as more than just a running back. But again, it's a risk, with injuries. Are these teams able to take out insurance policies to protect themselves in the event of a severe injury? Because it's not an easy decision. Like you mentioned, Jim, running backs just don't last as long. And to make that investment in him, which makes Adrian Peterson really remarkable that he could still play at his level, in the NFL after all these years. So would you sign Saquon Barkley long term? I would take the chance if I were Dave Gettleman, the Giants GM.
I'd sign. I've always
yeah.
The one thing I worry about is because he is a physical running back, and like you said, Jack, he can play other positions. Is every time he's getting hit by a 290-pounder, 300, is taking the toll. That's the only thing, and that's why running backs are short term.
No, speaking of running backs, I don't understand football as well as you guys, especially you, Jim. Travis Etienne, great running back from Clemson, arguably the best college running back in the country. Urban Meyer is turning him into a wide receiver this year. I mean, I just don't quite get it. I mean, the connection. I know you catch passes out of the backfield, you're athletic and all that, but isn't it a major difference between playing a wide out and catching passes out of the backfield?
Well, here's the thing: is with him. Probably we just talked about Saquon Barkley. That's going to extend his career as a wide receiver, first of all. And you're right, but he understands routes already from being at Clemson, and it's a type of offense. Plus, he has a advantage with that quarterback being there, and because they're friends, they've worked together before, and they're working under a new system. But he'll spend the time with him off the field, teach him the little nuances about running, learning that wide receiver. I think it's a brilliant move because you got a guy that's had success as a running back, and now you put him at wide receiver. From the standpoint of obviously catching the ball, that's going to be a little different. But the blocking, the things when he gets in the open field are going to be a little bit dangerous because DBs are not used to tackling guys like that. They're used to tackling true receivers. But now you got a running back that's that receiver.
Okay, so Jim, we got a wide receiver for Dallas coming up on a contract. Gallup. He's kind of the unsung wide receiver over there. Gallup has made a lot of big catches for the Cowboys since he's been a rookie. He's coming up on a contract. They got Cooper and Lamb, but I think it would be a big mistake if the Cowboys don't sign Gallup.
I would agree. The only thing is that you only have so much money under the cap. And I like Michael Gallup. No, not give me. But is he a number one receiver? That's the question you have to ask. Can he take them to the next level? Does CeeDee Lamb have more upside? And all these questions you have to ask. I love Michael Gallup. I love what he does for the Cowboys. And I love how he plays. But is he the number one? Prime example, when we were successful, we had Michael Irvin, then we had Alvin Harper. When Alvin Harper, and I have nothing against him, went to Tampa Bay, and became the #1 receiver, we saw things that we didn't see at Dallas because he had Michael Irvin there. Now he's getting the doubles. He's getting the over and under the top. So he has, and you saw all the deficiencies. And that's the thing you have to ask yourself. Does Michael Gallup change games if he's the #1 receiver?
I mean, he's expressed interest in staying there. He wants to remain a Cowboy, which is very. I mean, it's good for the Cowboys.
Yes.
But like you said, I mean, I've seen him make some unbelievable plays to change the game. May not be. Yeah, I do too. Miles Sanders for the Eagles. The Eagles, I think, underuse Miles Sanders. They for some reason they don't use their running backs a lot. Miles is a very dangerous running back. He breaks long games. He played underneath Saquon there, and then took over and had tremendous year for the Lions. He's explosive. He's coming up on his contract too. I think it's very important. He just keep a couple weapons anyway for this year. And that's.
I'm gonna ask the question on this. The running back's position in the last couple of years has changed, as we know. Can you be successful with dual running backs? Tampa Bay did it. They had 2 running backs, and Jones, Fournette, and that was successful. Do you need the workhorse anymore, or can you get by with 2 very good running backs? And that's the question I asked. And I know you said Miles Sanders, and the reason I asked that question is, does Sanders leave Philly, or do they sign Sanders and they bring somebody in to help him? And that's the reason I asked that question was, do you take 2? Because if you have the Cowboys rotate, even with Zeke, and I mean, how much is the drop off from the next running back? And that's the thing. Can you bring somebody that helps Sanders become a better player and less play? He doesn't have to play a total game.
To me, it's rare in the modern NFL that a workhorse is going to become the focal point of a team. Derrick Henry with the Titans, yeah, he's the main guy. The offense goes around, but it's so rare the days of the John Riggins type powerhouse runner is going to be the main point of the offense. I just think it's turned into a passing game, stretching the field, and that's just the way I look at it.
And that's a great point, Jack, because you look at it. What's the big thing about him? And everybody says, and he's a tremendous talent, but they don't say what he does. They say, when would he break down? Because he's a huge human being. He's bigger than a lot of outside linebackers. What is he going to break down? What year is he going to break down? What year is that toll of getting banged up going to take? Toll.
Jim, I got a theory on that. All right. The defense always is late to the party, right? When the offense does something and they change, the defense has to catch up. Well, eventually, as we saw with Kansas City Chiefs in Tampa, they catch up. So as the offense sees the defense catching up, guess what? Here comes the running game again. Because now the defense is going to have to draft linebackers and run stoppers again more than the pass rushers. I think it's going to be a cycle, Jim. And I still think there's a place for that one big running back. You got Zeke, you got Derek, Saquon when he's healthy, and you also got, over there Carolina Panthers. When he's healthy, he ain't too bad either. Now, maybe they catch the ball as much as they run, but I still think you need that superior athlete at running back. I think that changes the game, Jeff.
And that's a good point. But to your point, defenses do catch up. And when they come back, one of Jack's favorite players, Michael Parsons, who went to the Cowboys, they're teaching him to be a defensive end and a linebacker. So you got a guy with size that can run, and he can take on the Derrick Henrys of the world, Saquon Barkley of the world, because he's athletic enough and he's big enough and physical enough. So that, to your point, when they change, you'll see more guys like that because obviously those guys are coming out of college now because of the spread offenses. And if you're that big and you're a linebacker, you better be able to run.
No, funny thing, Jim, we always talk about offensive players like a running back like Saquon Barkley. How are they going to be after they've suffered a major injury? What about a guy from the defensive end? You could relate to this, like Von Miller, coming back after being injured all year. I mean, how important is it if you lose just one step, or just lose just a little bit, that little edge that Von Miller, had that made him one of the, elite pass rushers in football?
It depends on how his rehab went. And that's the big thing, because he's a very intelligent young man. And he understands what it takes to rush quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's why he's had so much success. But it is all now. It's not in his hand. It's in whoever's helping the physical therapy and preparing him for the season. And he has to understand that he'll probably have to work harder than he has in the past to get back to where he was. We had a guy, Greg Ellis, who became a Pro Bowler, and he played for me. I drafted him out of North Carolina, and he tore his Achilles. But he came back, and he became a Pro Bowler as an outside linebacker at 275, 280 pounds.
Wow. That's a handful. I know the tight end didn't want. Hey, Jim, the tight end or the lead blocker didn't want none of that. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. Holy Jesus.
But
so last
thing, his rehab is going to determine does he lose a step? He shouldn't lose a step if he does the rehab properly.
Right. So last one for you before you go, Jim. We got over the Redskins. I still call them the Redskins. The Washington football team. You got Terry McLaurin, 1,118 yards catching last year. Before that, 988. He's really the offensive threat of the Redskins. Are you going to sign him to an extension to make sure he stays around?
I think they will sign him to an extension. But the big thing is, like I keep telling you, is that the problem with the Washington football team, I'm going to be politically correct, is that their schedule is going to be a lot more difficult this year. They're very, very talented on defense. And they got Fitzgerald. But we know that Fitz could be kind of boom or bust a lot of times. He might throw 5 touchdowns, but he also might throw 5 interceptions.
Right.
And these things make an impact on him. And it, like you said, I would take it and sign him. But the thing you got to understand is that they got to find complementary to the running game, like we talked, and they won't be able to do the things because they won't be able to sneak up on people. So they do need as much talent on the field as they possibly can get.
I agree with that. So, Jim, I know you got to get going. You got something going. With the family here, we can't wait to have you back on next week. And as we
I'll be full next week.
We can't wait, Jim. Thank you for stopping by again. Have a great time with your daughter. There's nothing like family, my friend.
All right. Nothing like Father's Day.
You got that.
Okay, Jim. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's
Day to you guys.
Thank you very much, Jim. Have a great day. So there you go. The great Jim Jeffcoat makes his appearance again, and he'll be back next week as we get.
Great stuff. I felt like I was inside the Dallas Cowboy locker room, like you're going to feel like you're part of it, asking him what went on behind the scenes, someone who lived it.
Oh, I mean, the cool thing about him is that he was under Tom Landry. He was under, Jimmy Johnson, under Barry Switzer. Jimmy Johnson and Tom Landry.
I think he played for Marv Levy too at Buffalo.
Yes.
There you go. Think of all these great coaches he played for.
An incredible career. He has been nominated to the Hall of Fame. I think he's eventually going to get in there. I don't know how soon, but I would imagine.
I want to see him in the Ring of Honor, with Dallas, the Cowboys. I mean, I think is a little overdue.
I agree, too. In fact, I'm going to send a message out to my friend, Jerry Jones, and ask him what the heck's the problem over there. There's no reason Jim Jeffcoat, second all-time leading sacker, Pro Bowler, Super Bowl. There is no reason that he shouldn't be in there right now. Never mind waiting another couple of years. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. Thank you for sticking with us, but we got a lot more to cover here. We got some predictions for you. We got all kinds of stuff coming up in the last segment here. So stick around. We'll be right back.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What do you say to him?
Really, you know, a lot of kids try at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admitted to it, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. On our last day of the week, our Sunday This Week in Sports, we had on Robert Butler and just had the two-time Super Bowl champion Jim Jeffcoat on, who will be more and more part of our Sunday broadcast as we get closer to our big football show we start up when the games start, Jack. And it's going to be fun having him on full-time with us, getting that perspective and knowledge of a football player.
I'll tell you, Mac, I can't argue with him. I sometimes argue with you and say, Mac, you don't know football. I can't say that to him and get away with it.
Yes,
I mean it's
not only a player, two-time Super Bowl champ, a nominee to the Hall of Fame, but also a coach in the XFL, Jack. So Jim Jeffcoat with a lot of knowledge about football itself.
Well, many questions to ask him going forward in the coming weeks. When you've gotten to his level being one of the great defensive players in the NFL. How is it to coach guys at a much lower level that don't approach it talent-wise? I mean, for some former players can't do it. They expect the players to be of their caliber, to be just as good as they are. So how do you make that adjustment? I'd be curious to ask them that.
I mean, you're right, Jack. I mean, if you look at Bart Starr, if you look at Mike Singletary, at some of the great players, to have the players that I guess maybe you accept that because you're that talented, and it's hard to coach that. That's why a lot of the greatest coaches were not the greatest players. They might have made the pros, but they did that based off their smarts, their want. They had to make up for that talent. And that's why the Bill Parcells and the Vince Lombardis and the Tom Landrys, who was a great don't get me wrong, he was a great defensive back for the Giants. But I mean, he knew the game. His smarts were more than his athletic ability, and that's what carried him in. That's why these guys are so good at explaining the game and taking them talented players and developing them, which is the most important thing you can do as a professional head coach. I mean, at the high school level, you're still teaching the basics. You're still teaching them about the game. But once they get to the pros, they supposedly have all that knowledge. And some of them don't, Jack, because they're just so talented. You just line up and say, go. So how do you develop that player? That's what's so important in the NFL, that a lot of teams, that's why they're not successful, Jack. And believe that. I mean, that's why I'm excited about Joe Judge. I think he's a teacher. I think he's a communicator. And I think he'll be able to take some of the talent that he has and do something with it. We'll see what happens. And I think that way about the Jets' new head coach too, Jack. I'm really excited for the Jets this next few years. I think they're going to improve unbelievably.
Well, as a coach, you want to grow with the players. You want a nucleus that you started out with that's with you over, across a time. I mean, a young coach joining a veteran team could be a recipe for disaster. But if you have a veteran coach, or even a young coach, a first-year coach, starting with young players, but just happy to be in the NFL, happy to develop, happy to improve, that's an ideal situation.
Yeah, I agree. Great point. And communication, Jack, I mean, a lot of these coaches have been around in the NFL and have coached players, have been with coaches, and they kind of get familiarity with these players. And if they love them, they'll come and play their hearts out for that coach if they go to that team. So there's a lot of things that, you think about. Bill Parcells says once he said that coaching is like psychology, right? You got to know what buttons to push. If you don't, you're in for a lot of trouble. So, I mean, not just yelling at the players, but who you yell at, who you don't, who you develop, who you can let grow. I mean, there's got to be so many different things that successful coaches do that we don't even think about. We just think, yeah, he's yelling at him or he's a player's coach. I mean, that's just a broad statement that really doesn't describe what you have to do to become a really good coach like the Don Shulas and I could go on and on. These guys know how to communicate. They got their stuff together, and they know how to develop those young kids. And like you said, nucleus is very important. Harry Carson with the Giants. There's so many that that you could go into with the great coaches with great teams. They all did have that strong nucleus you're talking about. So let's get into again a little fun. This really doesn't mean nothing in the long run, but it's fun to do. They have the mock drafts. They do all this stuff that people get into, and people love predictions, Jack. We predicted the locals, except for the Cowboys. We're going to get to the Cowboys and Redskins with Jim as we go further. But there's divisions out there, and things change. New coaches. We see the new talent coming up. We see the old guard maybe falling off a little bit. Not sure, but there are a lot of things to consider. So we're going to take a look at the AFC West and kind of predict what we think, what order they'll finish in by the end of the year. We know Kansas City has been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years, winning one, losing the last one. So what comes to mind first for me is the Super Bowl curse, right? The loser normally, if you're not the Buffalo Bills, falls so far off, they normally don't even make the championship game and sometimes don't even win the division the following year. Kansas City lost last year, Jack, and lost pretty soundly to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I still think they're the class of that division. I think they'll finish in first, but I don't think they depending on the schedule, that they're going to have as impressive record as they did last year. So I still think Kansas City wins that division, but maybe not by as much as a big a margin as they did last year, Jack.
Well, if you recall in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes was under duress all game long. I mean, he had to run around the Tampa Bay defense. I mean, just broke through the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. The Chiefs redid the offensive line this year, picking up Orlando Brown from the Ravens, Joe Thuney from the Patriots, Kyle Long, who ironically got injured. You know, whether he's good, he had a setback. Hopefully he's back at the start of the season. So they redid their offensive line, and they would seem to be still the class of the AFC West if you look at the other teams, you know, who are behind them. I mean, the Ravens, who had success playing against the Chiefs not the Ravens, the Raiders, I'm sorry. They were 8-8 last year. They're even going to be as good as 8-8 again. I mean, something about the Raiders, they seem a little dysfunctional. And you have the Denver Broncos, who I think are a little overrated. People are making it out, wow, they're Super Bowl contender. All they need is Aaron Rodgers to get over the top. I don't see him being that close.
No, I agree.
just don't. They were what were they, 5-11 last year? Right. What makes them so good this year? I don't want to hear they had a ton of injuries because Von Miller's coming back. They're going to win, you know, a few more games. You know, that's not going to be the case. I mean, I expect some improvement out of the Denver Broncos. They have that, you know, a fascinating quarterback competition going with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater right now. So unless they somehow pick up Aaron Rodgers, and those are just rumors, I mean, it's going to come down to Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. And let's face it, neither's elite. Okay? Drew Lock has more upside, more potential to do big things, but it doesn't mean he should be the guy starting ahead of Bridgewater, who's competent but nothing special. Team that fascinates me is the LA Chargers with Justin Herbert. They were only 7-9 last year, but they closed the season very strongly. So when we want to evaluate a team on the season and we look at the year before, we shouldn't just quickly look at their record and see, well, 7-9, they might be a game or two better. They might go 8-8, 9-7. It's how they close the year. Chargers closed the year very strongly, and Justin Herbert was trending towards being one of the elite NFL quarterbacks, and he's only going to improve. He's going to be pretty soon on the short list when you talk about who are the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me by the end of next season, Justin Herbert's name is there with the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Meaning the Chargers, I could see them improving in the 10-6, 11-5 range. Meaning the Chiefs are going to have their work cut out for them. Chiefs don't look like a 14-2 team the way they were last year. They won a lot of close games, and they're going to lose some of those games this year. So you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a 17-game schedule. They might only be like a 12-5 team, meaning the Chargers are going to really be pushing them this year. But you got to go with the Chiefs as the favorites to win the division. Then I kind of like the Chargers. And then it comes down to, and then I'll maybe go with the Broncos over the Raiders 3-4. That would be my pick offhand. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with almost everything you said 100%. I think the Chargers will move up in second place. They won their last 4 games. As you said, they finished very strong. I mean, I see I'm with you with the Chiefs. If the Chiefs get 13 wins this year, I'll be surprised. I expect them to win about 12 games. The Chargers, I expect to improve. I don't know yet. Justin Herbert played very well last year. He kind of took the league by surprise. There's something called a sophomore jinx. I'm not saying he's going to fall into that. I think the teams will be ready to play him this year. And I think that the Chargers will improve kind of dramatically under him. I really do. I think Herbert could be that good. He reminds me a lot of a taller Brett Favre. He just makes plays. And he seems a little bit more accurate in his first year anyway. So I know there's a sophomore jinx. But I think the Chargers, who finished 7-9 last year, will be up around 9-10 wins this year, Jack. I think closer to 10 than 9. I really do.
Well, certain quarterbacks, I don't believe sophomore jinx. It's just a term like you're using. Defenses get to learn a quarterback a little better and adjust to them. But that's normally the case with running quarterbacks like RG3, who had a great rookie year. He was rookie of the year, and he was neck and neck with Andrew Luck. They came out together. Luck went 1, RG3 went 2. But in RG3's rookie year, he was actually, a tiny bit better. But defenses got to adjust to him. He got injured with the running around. Baker Mayfield had a strong rookie year. His second year, not nearly as good. But by his third year, he kind of bounced back. So I kind of see what you're saying. Lamar Jackson, they get to know him a little better. Actually, his rookie year, he didn't play much. He got in the playoff game. So his second year, in a way, was like his rookie year. They adjusted to him a little more. But then you want to know something? If you're a quarterback, you and your coach, you readjust to the defense. It's not just a question the defense adjusts to you. You adjust to them as well, and that's what we see with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. That's what we saw with the Browns with Baker Mayfield. They started readjusting themselves to the defense. But something about Justin Herbert, he's a special type of quarterback. He's not like the other guys.
I agree.
I'm talking about a guy who I could see, it's a long ways off, obviously, trending towards a Hall of Fame career, that he's going to be that impactful, a quarterback. Yeah. I'm talking about if he doesn't get hurt, you're talking about the next 15 years really being one of the faces of the NFL. That's how good I think he is. That's how I see him. But, the second year remains to be seen. If he takes a step backwards, then I'm obviously wrong. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
I agree, Jack. I think in the case of Baker Mayfield, they changed the offense, right? They went to the running game and gave him a little bit more time to set and throw off the fakes. And I'm not sure what kind of running game San Diego has. I really didn't look at it that close. I think that Herbert will grow, but are they going to depend too much on him is what I'm a little worried about. Where, you put too much pressure on him. He's still a kid. He's still young, still learning. I mean, they've got to help him out, I feel anyway, Jack, with the running game. I think there has to be some kind of threat with the run to ensure that Herbert grows a little bit. So I agree with you. I think Herbert could be a very, very special quarterback.
Well, for Justin Herbert, what they did, Mac, in the draft, they looked out for him. They got arguably the best offensive lineman in Rashad Slater to pass block for Justin Herbert. So they're very conscious. They're building the team around him. And they have a new coach, Brandon Staley. Yes. And in all due respect to Anthony Lynn, who coached 4 years for the Chargers and had, a couple of good years with him, a couple of not so good years. I thought he did a really poor job last year managing the team. And it even started, in training camp when he designated Tyrod Taylor as the start over Justin Herbert. And we're talking Tyrod Taylor here. Even though he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans this year, he's not a top quality NFL starting quarterback. And to take a talent like Justin Herbert and say, well, he's going to spend, the year on the bench, and if Tyrod Taylor does well, he could be starting quarterback beyond next year. I mean, come on.
Yeah, those are crazy. Those are crazy statements to make. Yeah, I mean, all the arrows point to Herbert and the Chargers being in second place this year, and I agree with you with Denver. I don't see the big thing about Denver also. They got to have a good defense. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know. Denver looks crazy to me over the last few years, Jack. It doesn't look like they really know what they want to do. John Elway's moved on from being the GM to another position. The quarterback position, I'm waiting on Drew Lock. I don't think we've seen enough of Drew Lock to see whether he's going to be good or not. Teddy Bridgewater has had his chances to play. He has played well. But again, to me, he would be more of a game manager. Not that you can't go far with a game manager, but I don't think the Broncos are as good as people are saying also, Jack. So I got them around 7 wins. If they do improve, 6 wins, 7 wins, maybe.
I don't know. The quarterback situation is going to be the talk, what's going on. And their defense is solid. Vince Fangio is the coach, so. And the wideouts, Judy there. There's potential. Listen, there's potential for them to have a winning season. I'm not discarding them. My thing is everyone is talking in terms that they're ready-made Super Bowl contender. If they get Aaron Rodgers, that puts them in the mix to go to the Super Bowl. And it would elevate them without question. But I just don't see them as being a ready-made Super Bowl team like the LA Rams or who got Matthew Stafford. That would be a missing piece. And now the Rams are a very serious Super Bowl contender. I don't see even getting as great a play as Aaron Rodgers, putting them right there, neck and neck with the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, it would elevate Denver, but I just don't see them as being that good.
I agree with you. I think they finished in third. The Raiders, they started off like they were going to be something that year. Then they stopped doing what they were doing. They beat the Chiefs passing, and all of a sudden they were throwing the ball all over the place instead of being physical. And this year they got rid of some linemen. John Gruden knows a lot about football. He knows a lot about quarterbacks. He's a good offensive coordinator. I don't know if he's that good of a head coach, Jack, and that may be bad to say because he is such a knowledgeable football guy. But to be a head coach, as we've talked about at length on this show, is more than just being able to call great plays and be a great quarterback coach. That doesn't do it. You've got to have control over the whole team, all your coaches, and be involved in the players. And I don't think John Gruden does that well. He went to the Super Bowl, but with a team that was already built, Jack.
In fairness to John Gruden, his first go-around with the Raiders, even though he never took them to a Super Bowl, they were successful. He did have successful teams. He went over to the Buccaneers. They won a Super Bowl. So he was generally successful his first 2 stops. And last year, even though we think of the Raiders as being a losing team, they were 8-8. So they weren't that bad. They were average, okay? But John Gruden reminds me of the mad scientist, trying all these things, all these ideas. Even the way the Raiders drafted was kind of a little unorthodox. They reached for a player who they could have gotten later on by all accounts. And in John Gruden, he's the one coach that football really seems to be his whole life. If anyone's going to live in the office, it's going to be John Gruden. But the Raiders, you just don't know what direction that they're exactly going in. They lost guys to free agency. You just don't know with the Raiders. Because they got John Gruden, people thought it's a recipe for success. But I could see the Raiders from 8-8. We now have a 17-game schedule, actually sliding back and being a 6-11 team. I could really see them being that poor.
I agree. And then I don't know what the Raiders are going to do. They signed him to a long, very rich contract. And if they do drop to the last place from second, what do the fans do? What does the organization do?
Well, Derek Carr came out with a statement the other day. If they trade me, I'm going to retire. Why would he even be answering a question? This is your starting quarterback about being traded. Because he obviously feels a little of the pressure, a little of the Aaron Rodgers talk. John Gruden's the type, if they can get, and Mike Mayock, the GM, if they could get Aaron Rodgers, they'll pull out all the stops to do it. What does that say about Derek Carr, the faith they have in him? And quite honestly, I'm a little surprised Derek Carr has lasted as long as the Raider quarterback as he has. Is he a okay quarterback? Yeah, he's okay to decent. but he's not. But is he a true franchise quarterback? Is he a faucet quarterback? And I don't quite think so. So you get the feeling they're looking elsewhere, but it's hard to get an elite quarterback. The only one that's really going to be available is going to be perhaps be available would be Aaron Rodgers. And I get the feeling the Raiders would pull out all the stops. They would give every draft choice available to them in the coming years and players and do whatever it would take to get Aaron Rodgers there. And I think Derek Carr senses that. Why else would he say he would retire if they traded him?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have no doubt that they would do that either. Folks, we're getting close to the end of the show. Just to inform the people that have been listening, we did cover the East Conference Football League yesterday. In fact, we had the games going on Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page. Me and Steve D did cover the Connecticut Mustangs, who played in a tough game. They were down, Jack, by 2 scores, came back and won the game 27-24. A big win for them.
Oh, you should have posted that score when Jim Jeffcoat was on the Cowboys losing. That would have been a reaction.
Even though they're from Rhode Island, you know, he might have got a little infuriated with that. But anyway, so we're doing the coverage of the Semi-Pro Football League. If you want to check it out, go over to Northeast Streaming Sports. Check it out. Me and Steve D did 3/4 of coverage before the whole connection down over there at the field went down. But it was fun to do, Jack. It was fun to see the defense make big stops. And guess what? I loved it the most, and you're gonna understand this. The Mustangs were, like I said, down by 2 scores, and they were throwing the ball, and Rhode Island was all over them, and they went to power running. And the power running was picking up 5 to 15 yards a carry. They were doing the old, I don't want to say it, they were doing just a quarterback power keeper, and they were picking up huge yardage, opened up the defense. They started throwing the ball, and they ended up winning the game. So they're playing the Fire coming up, who was the champions last year and destroyed the first team they went up against. So it's going to be a tough game for them next week. We're hoping to get the coach on and talk to him either on the recap or on our show. Saldon, I think it's DeMayo, if I'm not mistaken. We'll try to get him and a couple players on, either on a separate thing or on our show. So, guys, I want to thank you all for tuning in. It's been a fun show, great guests, a lot of sports news that we had to cover this week, which wasn't all the things we covered because we'd have to go another hour. But we tried to get the most important points out to you. Again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, Jack. Happy Father's Day. I don't know. Is there a Grandfather's Day now?
They're coming up with new days all the time. Okay.
I know they are.
Which are meaningful, which are good. I'm not putting it down.
Sure. Too much of anything is sometimes not enough, if you know what I mean, Jack. I mean, it's too many soups ruin the soup. I mean, I could go on and on with the sayings, but happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you, Pickles, for joining us today. Pleasure having everybody chiming in with their comments and questions. We're your personal radio, we're your personal sports network. So we encourage that. Any questions you got of us or the hosts, the guest hosts, the guests, we encourage them. We'll put them up if they're relevant. Some comments they're on there, Jack. They're on our feed, but to bring them up, either we went by them or they're just, our fans sometimes get obstinate, Jack. You know what I mean? Especially a couple of them. So sometimes I don't show them up as we're talking, but they're there. So, guys, again, thanks for tuning in. We got a couple days off to retool, get ready for our week starting Wednesday. So join us Wednesday at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. We'll be back. New guest lists, new information, and a whole lot of sports. Might be a lot of these playoff games, Jack, will be decided when we come back. So you guys have a great day, and happy Father's Day again. We'll see you on Wednesday.